Hello and welcome to Pre-Rotation Standard, or as we say, Post-Ban List! Now, it's been a whole 24 hours, so I'm sure that many content creators have gotten out their lists of all the fun new decks to play in the new pre-wrote format. And if you're like me, and you've been on ladder, you've experienced that Omniscience is still good. It turns out that paying one more mana for the Omniscience Resurrection spell is not really a super meaningful change to the deck generally, and the limiting factor in experiencing it in best of one continues to be the player's patience levels for playing an Omniscience deck. But now people are also prepared to pay 4 mana for Zombify, because Black is allowed to have their Zombify effects at 4 mana, and which means we've got a Traxxas back, we've got a Cascade, we've got a Ghalta, you know, we've got all sorts of crazy stuff. It's not Cascade, it's Discover. It doesn't matter. Presented with this dilemma, a lesser content creator would tell you to, say, run Graveyard Hate Pieces, but you clicked on this video because it says mono red decks, which means that you're not interested in running hate pieces, you're interested in running an aggro strategy that goes under whatever nonsense your opponents are doing, and just doing your own game plan. And I am going to present you with 2 deck lists, because now you actually have to sort of pick a lane for mono red. Eventually, the best mono red deck is going to get figured out and everybody's just going to start playing that, but also actual rotation is in a month, so maybe it won't get figured out in the intervening time. If you don't want to watch the rest of the video, please leave a like and subscribe. At the very least, deck lists are in the description, and the short version is we've got a creature-based deck and a prowess-based deck. First and foremost is creatures, because honestly, Prowess is the deck that everybody's probably already relatively familiar with and immediately went to because Boltwave exists in the format. So I want to start with the deck that's a little bit more interesting to me. And Creatures is a deck that utilizes the fact that Hired Claw continues to be an absurdly broken 1-drop, as long as you are prepared to use all of the parts of the card. That is to say, if you're playing Hired Claw as a 1-mana kind of a 2/2, it's good, like very good, but it's not as good as if you include in your game plan the fact that it can also get larger, which carries on the spirit of Monstrous Rage a little bit. So this mono red creatures deck utilizes some cards that have been forgotten by time, like Feldon, like Inti, like Phoenix Chick, and includes, you know, Stadium Headliner, Hired Claw, new incredibly good rare red 1-drops that are just fantastic. This deck is basically, of the 2 decks, this is the deck that has more momentum, but less speed. And it's going to be using Screaming Nemesis a lot of the time to just plonk it down in front of, say, a giant Saz's Chocobo, and saying, if you don't have trample, I'm going to ait you with your own Chocobo, and then you can't gain any more life for the rest of the game. On the other hand, we have Mono Red Prowess. Now, this is a deck based around the fact that Monastery Swiftspear is still in standard for another month, Opera Love Song is an absolutely broken card, and generally that Prowess is fantastic. We've got a couple of good turn 1 plays here, but realistically, this deck is the more fragile, even though it is going to feel a lot more powerful in the actual moment, because this deck really requires you to just naturally draw the cards that you need to draw. You really want Opera Love Song to not be a impulse 2 cards at instant speed. You really want it to be a 2-mana deal 4 to somebody's face, because that's crazy. And of course, never forget that if you have a Burst Lightning and a Screaming Nemesis, always filter your Burst Lightning through your Screaming Nemesis, because then it also prevents your opponents from gaining life for the rest of the game, which is pretty much the only way you're ever going to beat Beza. Now, if it looks like these 2 decks are kind of exactly the same curve, find and replace situation, ironically, that is not what's going on. What's going on here is more a case of they have the same game plan, they're incredibly aggro. This is just what an aggro curve looks like. You're going to have 4 3-drops, and that's the most expensive card that you have. Now, which of these decks you're going to play is basically going to be personal preference, which is my favorite kind of choosing between decks to play, but it's also going to be a little bit based on the wildcard situation. I mean, just look at this mono red creatures deck. We've got 4, 8, 20, 28. Just straight up wildcards. I was going to say rare wildcards, but actually Screaming Nemesis is mythic wildcards, which are apparently easier to get because you don't need as many mythics as you do rares. Whereas, I mean, the Prowess deck is not cheap, but realistically, there's a lot more cards here at common and uncommon. There's more Foundations cards in the form of Boltwave and Ghitu Lavarunner. And by the way, Ghitu Lavarunner, not an ideal 1-drop, much more of a hasty 2/2 once you've put some stuff in the graveyard. I like it better than Shock in the deck, but also, like, you can just run Shock if you really feel like you absolutely need to bolt more birds. And if you are going to play these decks, I would of course be remiss not to accentuate 2 extremely important points. 1, mulligan. Please, for the love of God, you don't have as much card draw as you think you do. In the Prowess deck, you have literally no card draw because your only card draw spell is a card that you want to be using for burn. Mulligan your opening hands. Even if you, like, if you don't have a solid turn 1, turn 2, you shouldn't even be thinking about it. It should just be shuffle that back immediately. You really, if you have a medium turn 1 play, but you haven't mulliganed yet, it is absolutely worth taking 1 mulligan to see if you get a really, really good turn 1 and turn 2 in your opening hand. Because, let's be clear, these decks are going for a turn 4 kill, and if you see the fabled turn 5, you're not immediately dead. Let's be real. It's entirely possible that you are immediately dead because your opponent resolves a Zombify, or hits you with a Tifa that they've finally put together, or resolves an Omniscience. If you get to turn 5, you've run out of gas. Like, straight up, this is a deck that is not designed to do things past turn 4 because it's banking on the opponent being dead. And secondly, turn 1, plot a Demonic Ruckus is a good play. It is, in fact, very nearly an optimal turn 1 for both decks. I know it's not going to feel like that a lot of the time. First of all, because on your turn 1, you're dealing no damage. Some part of your lizard brain really wants to turn 1 Boltwave. Turn 1 Boltwave is bad. It establishes nothing, and unless you're going to go Boltwave, turn 2, Boltwave, Ghitu Lavarunner, and you've got your 2/2 hasty creature, Boltwave just doesn't set you up for anything. Demonic Ruckus, if you play it onto a Monastery Swiftspear, if you play it onto an Emberheart Challenger, you're getting 2 damage because you're getting 1 point of damage from the aura that now has haste, and you're getting a prowess trigger. And that's the really important thing here. Remember your prowess triggers. Now, I don't have Slickshot Bird in either of these decks, and that's probably a mistake. But I'm going to level with you here. Content creators make mistakes, and I want you, as the viewer, to be confident in changing these decks. I want you to put Slickshot into these decks, but to justify the cards that you are taking out. And for the record, if you are taking out any lands, you are incorrect.